I'm Zach Newford, welcome to my vlog. This is the pilot episode. Let's get the day going. Why does it turn up to 82 degrees? What's up guys, I'm Zach Newford. This is my first vlog. I'm going to be taking you guys around with me as I show you a little bit about the scene of stand-up comedy down here in Miami and South Florida. Myself, I'm an aspiring comedian. I've been doing it for 2 years now. So let's build a little community here. You guys can give me advice. I'm all ears for how I can improve jokes that I share on this channel. The main format of this vlog is going to be to go out to a show, film my set, and then come back home and then review how I think that set went, discussing kind of the new jokes, the new angles, and how I can improve for future sets. I will see you guys at Thank You Miami. What's up guys, I'm at Thank You Miami. We got here around 10 p.m. I'm 14 on the list, probably looking at like a midnight slot. So, gonna be a grind here. I lit up a cigar. I'm working on see if I can focus this. Working on a New World Cameroon wrapper by AJ Fernandez. A nice inexpensive stick, something to bring out to the show. I'm gonna be kicking it with some comedians out here. Comedians hanging outside. So I'm going to be hanging with them. My battery's running a little low, so I'm going to switch that out. And I will see you guys in a little bit. Peace.
Next comedian, very funny, very witty, one of my faves out here in South Florida. Let's give it up for my man, Zach Newford, everybody. Hell yeah, doggy. My man, Zach Newford, everybody.
Alright, so you can see as I get up there, my crowd was reduced to one guy and the host. There's actually a couple guys down in the area below I'll start talking to, but they're a couple comedians. So off to an alright start. Let's see how this goes.
What's up? I'm Zach Newford. I've always had a tough time fitting in. How do you guys do with that? You guys always feel like, anyway, put a hand up if you've ever been somewhere you don't belong.
So this is kind of a new start for me. Usually I like to jump in, get a laugh, get a joke in the first couple seconds. I'm trying to kind of break the ice with the crowd and weave in something of a narrative structure. Right now the act I'm kind of working on revolves around trying to fit in and some of the quirks of my childhood and moving out to Miami. Yeah, I can say I felt a little weird doing it here, but let's see where it goes.
Ashman, fuck it, obviously.
So I got that laugh. I was talking about a comedian down there, Ashman, and that's basically what I'm going for. Get someone to raise their hand, ask their name if I don't know it already, and just connect with at least one person on this note, and then get into my first joke here.
No, I just always feel like a fish out of water. Like, I was born in a small pueblo in northern Mexico, San Diego.
So even that little act out there or physical move where I'm like looking at myself, I don't know if I'm going to keep that. That's the first time I've done that. Usually I just roll right through that line, and it's a decent enough opener. It has a couple tags that I didn't do here tonight. I just wanted to get into some other material.
And I had a tough time with my parents growing up. Hey, wasn't that your bike outside?
And I kind of bailed on this transition because it wasn't the right. I didn't say the right thing. But the next joke is not about my parents, and I think that came from the fact that I was doing a different opener. Usually I run that bit a little longer and it transitions more naturally. So I kind of had the abrupt stop there with the San Diego stuff, and I ended up switching topics and working the other member of the crowd. You can't see him; he's like right there, next to the camera setup.
It's still there. 3 minutes ago. No, I had a tough time growing up. My family raised me half Catholic, half Jewish. Yeah, I'm a cashew and a little nuts.
So, okay, that joke's frankly, a little overdone. I'm not the only Catholic Jew that calls themselves a cashew. The nuts is obviously a tag, and it sets up my next couple of jokes. One's a Catholic joke, and the next couple are Jewish jokes. But I actually use that as a pretty strong barometer for how the crowd's going to be laughing. I do get some pretty nice pops off of that joke, just that little wordplay, jingle with the cashew thing. And, there were some chuckles here, but that's about as crazy as this crowd is going to get for me. So I'm kind of using that as my barometer. And obviously, it's a very quiet night. I'm here past midnight. There's only, maybe 8 people in the room, and two, maybe three are paying attention at this point. So I'm doing this set to kind of work a couple new pieces of material, just to kind of sound them out on the microphone. Tried a little bit of a different order, get some of those bugs out. So, but it is important to gauge your audience and know what a big laugh in a quiet room kind of represents. And you want to do that with a joke that you kind of are comfortable, you're very confident in, and say, okay, look, I've done this joke, 20 plus times, and it gets, decent reaction. And in a good room, it gets a pretty strong reaction. So this is kind of my threshold of like, okay, if I can hit this level again, if I can get people laughing this hard at any of this new material, well, then it's, worth keeping, or I might be onto something there. And then anything less, I have to kind of think, how can I bring this material up to this standard? Now, it's all a little warped. You want to do a material in rooms where you can just say, hey, look, I'm getting people to laugh. But, to utilize these open mics and to get the most out of this stage time, you got to be able to kind of develop a system where you're like, okay, this is a joke. Let's see other jokes on a relative scale. How loud can I get this crowd to go in terms of laughter?
And I don't understand why I can't be Catholic and Jewish. You can throw this at me. Like, I didn't stop believing in the Sorcerer's Stone when I read the Chamber of Secrets. I'm just a fan.
And that connects with somebody there. That's a new joke. I've performed it two different ways, and I just kind of an aside, but it's interesting that a joke, the setup and the punchline can be switched, and it's still pretty much the same joke. In other words, you're breaking the same assumption, but it's not very obvious which setup and punchline is better. This is not exactly that, but I usually tell this joke and I say, when I read the Chamber of Secrets, I didn't stop believing in the Sorcerer's Stone. It's the same premise of, believing in the Old and the New Testament with a Harry Potter analogy, but it's not so obvious which one's better. So this is the first time I tried that. I got a pretty good reaction out of it. So I think I'm going to at least try this the next couple of times, where I say, when I read, how do I say it? I didn't stop believing in the Sorcerer's Stone when I read the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, that somehow, I didn't like it when I wrote it that way, because the whole stop believing part, I feel like, is the surprise or the punchline. But I got a good reaction. So let me just think those through. When I read the Chamber of Secrets, I didn't stop believing in the Sorcerer's Stone. I guess you have to digest a little bit more information and kind of see what I'm doing with this analogy all at the end there, which can work, but maybe it's too layered to just be like, hey, I didn't stop believing in the Sorcerer's Stone when I read the Chamber of Secrets. I guess that joke becomes a little predictable at that point, but just the fact I'm even talking about Harry Potter is enough of a jump from the whole Catholic Jewish thing that I think you got to give the audience a little bit more in the setup so they put it all together. So I'm going to perform it this way the next couple of times. I like that, but just kind of just thinking about jokes, it's so interesting that like you can literally change the order of the setup and the punchline and get a totally different reaction. I think everyone should kind of check every single one of their jokes and just ask, if you switch those two things, is this joke made better? And it's surprising how often it is. It's because it's easier to write the joke forward, but you want to understand it backwards. In other words, to write the joke, you almost have to go in a certain direction. But then now that you have it, you can reverse it, and that can like really add to the suspense, or really make the broken assumption that much sharper, or give the audience that much more to chew on in a short time, and that can trigger a lot of laughter. So just something to check with all of your material is whether the setup and punchline can be switched to create a bigger effect.
You raised Catholic, Anthony? Yeah, my Catholicism was a little different though, man. We believed in the millennial Jesus.
Okay, before I get into this next bit, I would just point out, okay, there was basically 3 audience members, Ashton and the comedians downstairs, and I wasn't really playing to them too much. the guy next to me here, and then Anthony, who is also a comedian, but I haven't seen too much of him, so I doubt he's seen all this material. And the point is, I did connect with everyone that was in the room or listening, and that's been a new kind of thing I've been doing really just in the last couple months, where to set up a joke, I want to have like an audience member in mind, kind of have a conversation with them, and then get into the material. I've always been a kind of like high joke per minute, laugh per minute kind of guy, so I always think I'm kind of cheating my time here by having these little interactions, but it's been pretty powerful just in terms of getting the audience all kind of on board, and then when I get into more and more material, the responses are stronger. So it's a little bit of a delayed gratification in terms of building up the audience, getting them on my side, relating to them so that I can put my material in the best light. I like the idea of just going up there and telling as many jokes as I can during the set time. But when you go out there and you're doing a set of 5 minutes and you're doing 30 jokes and no laughter comes from even one of them, you got to kind of mix up your strategy. So I've been adding in a lot more crowd interaction elements, and this was a little one here with Anthony that I like. Hey, you're Catholic, yeah, but I do it a little different, and now I go into my millennial Jesus bit.
Believed in the millennial Jesus, and he turned water into White Claw. He ordered.
And look, I mean that joke's all right. I get some laughs off it, but just connecting with the audience first. Now you're making eye contact with him. It's a little bit of a cheat code, Now he's kind of forced into responding. So he gave me the little, head down chuckle, which is about as good as I can get to around here. But on a bigger stage, with you get an audience that's kind of into it. You connect with a laughing group, someone that you've seen in the show is responding pretty well, and then you get them on your side. That really brings in the tables around them, the seats near them, a whole party of 4 or 5, and that can really set up the entirety of the next set. The next 4 minutes are going to go much better if you get a good hook into your audience members early. And Anthony, by the way, was telling jokes about working at Chick-fil-A, so I wove that into the next bit.
His Last Supper Uber Eats from Chick-fil-A. Thank you for that one. Now you might relate to this, Anthony. Millennial Jesus is in a throuple. You know that? The Father, the Son, and the avocado toast. Holy guacamole, that's right.
I don't know. I always expected that joke to get a little bit more. I have no really plans of cutting it because I have kind of more I've been developing into this millennial Jesus thing. And I really do need a Catholic joke to kind of set up the two sides of my Catholic Jewish experience. I have a lot more Jewish jokes at this point. So I'm keeping the Catholic bit in here. The holy guacamole, it's a little silly. Sometimes it doesn't get the most laughter. Maybe I shouldn't, pause there for effect, thinking that, oh, they're really going to catch up with this, silly little pun. But maybe it almost like going straight on past it could be the move, and let people kind of digest. Oh, holy guacamole! I get it. Avocado toast. Don't expect to get a good laugh out of that particular line.
I'll say our Lord's Prayer together tonight. Join me if you know it. Our Daddy, that art in the metaverse, hallowed be thy username. Thy king or queendom come. Thy will be done tomorrow, on earth as it is in the Kitty Cafe. Give us this day our daily Starbucks latte, and forgive us of our microaggressions, as we forgive those who said something insensitive online 8 years ago. And lead us not into OnlyFans, but deliver us from P. Diddy.
So that's actually the first time first time in a while I performed that, and I've changed a couple of the little jokes there. And it's an interesting format of a joke because, I don't know how much laughter I'm going to generate on each of those little, whatever subversions of the prayer. The ones that probably will get laughs are like, hallowed be thy username. It's just because it's at the end of the line. Because a lot of them I kind of put into the middle, just gauging on the reaction. I actually was getting some audible responses from some, but not all of those little tags. And personally, I think the last joke's kind of the weakest. I've played with a couple things there in terms of deliver us from evil, because I do like lead us not into OnlyFans. That's pretty spot on. Temptation, but deliver us from evil. I do P. Diddy because he's in the news. Before it was Andrew Tate. I wonder if there's something I can hit here with like a Joe Biden joke or something like that, or Trump or whatever. Just being hot in the news, election cycle. But that last bit is the part I need to sharpen up or think about replacements for. I think P. Diddy's far enough out of the news that one has lost its appeal. But that's what I landed on when I wrote this prayer out the most recently. So a fun little bit though, I gotta say. Especially in a longer set, having kind of a little piece like this can be fun. Maybe connect with some people in terms of their Christian upbringings, millennials, of course, and playing into those stereotypes. So One Ale Jesus with the Lord's Prayer that seems to be a keeper for now. I'm going to move now into the Jewish material. But I got a pretty good reaction on a kind of a new minute chunk there with the whole Lord's Prayer thing. So definitely made this set worth it, frankly. That was the most new material I did. The rest is stuff I've definitely done before, but I'm tweaking this next bit. So let's take a look. Obviously asking a lot out of this audience of two non-comedians, but definitely a place for a potential applause break. You know, I think people do kind of respond to those long form bits with less laughter in between, but by the end they're kind of like, okay, that was pretty funny. And amen's obviously the key like line there to say I'm done, besides knowing the prayer. So I actually think there's a lot of potential for this joke. I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Like my rabbi taught me that Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th. So I always thought it was anti-Semites going around town spray painting 420.
Okay, so this is the hardest joke to set up, and that setup's a little long, and I mentioned Adolf Hitler by name, so there's a lot that works against that setup. I really do need to pack some information in there because then I do have a pretty strong, follow-up with quite a few tight tags. But my gosh, I've tried to write that joke, 50 different ways. In terms of like my rabbi taught me that anti-Semites would go around spray painting 420 to celebrate Hitler's birthday. When do I include that information? I say just straight up. April 20th is Hitler's birthday. I try to get the premise going out to the audience without look. This crowd is already silent, and you could actually hear it get quieter somehow when I mention Adolf Hitler in this room.
Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th.
So that's kind of the classic effect. I need to respond right then and there and say something like, I know, or like, yeah, here we go. Yeah, I'm going there. I do need to like lean in to that awkwardness in a way, just to get a kind of a mid setup giggle or keep people on board. Because the premise is pretty important just based on the fact that I'm going to be delivering 6 or 7 jokes based on the idea that I thought that 420 is a code to celebrate Hitler.
And then in college, my buddy comes up to me, hey, Zach, what are you doing to celebrate 420? You want to come? Like, bro, that's sick. I said, yeah, man, it's going to be sick. We're going to go out to the field and smoke some J's.
Oh, you want to come south? Yeah.
Oh, gee, oh my God, you guys, I'm Jayish. He said, yeah, bro, last year in the doors.
And God, I think my timing was pretty weak here. In this set for that joke. But that is a strong joke that's gotten a pretty amazing reaction before, even without the clarification. I just say, hey, we're gonna go out to the field and smoke some J's, and just sit in that one for a little bit. People catch on pretty quick, and then I tag it with, yeah, I'm Jayish, or oh my God, I'm Jayish, and that's probably the pinnacle of this particular joke. I thought about ending it there. But again, just with this long setup, I just feel like I need to get a couple more jokes out of it. So I do kind of go on, and I'll let you guys decide if these next couple jokes are worth it.
Oh, we hotboxed the showers. Some kids couldn't handle the gas. So I bashed his head in with my menorah. Don't worry, he survived for 8 nights. It was a miracle. That's right.
Okay, and now I did forget a pretty important tag to this joke. I call that joke neopozzies. And, again, just because it's the end of a joke, it's a little bit of a long one in terms of just having a couple elements. It's a story. It's another place where I can get some nice applause. But I'm pretty bad at remembering that exact tag because I used to put the neopozzi line earlier in the joke. I used to put it right after the setup. I used to think anti-Semites were going around spray painting 420. Yeah, I was afraid of neopozzies. But one, it's a strong kind of joke that I want to put it towards the end. I think it's stronger than leaving off on the bashing the head in with the menorah or the Hanukkah miracle or whatever. And two, this is kind of a new little lesson I've learned, which is like when you do those kind of quirky wordplay jokes, you actually want to put them at the end of a joke when you already have some laughter going just from like the situational comedy or the image making or the kind of absurdity of this situation. And now the audience has kind of bought into it and they're willing to get a little silly and play with the words. Where if you start with a wordplay joke, it's kind of hard to get the ball rolling that way. In fact, I've heard this referred to as a sphere versus a cube kind of joke. And a sphere joke will roll, the audience will kind of get involved, and that can push a cube, once you have some momentum. But you don't want to start on a cube because there's a lot of friction to get a wordplay joke, a little pun to get an audience reaction. So I want to put this tag at the end, but The biggest problem I'm having with it right now is I always forget it because that's not where it used to go in the joke. So just one of those little quirks that you tell a joke one way quite for a while, a few months, and then when you try to mix it around, you end up forgetting it. So I gotta have some mnemonic or something to remember that you gotta end that joke with neopazis. That is a good way to finish that joke.
Family vacation, we like to go to the Holocaust Museum whenever there's a group on.
So this is another one where this setup is again pretty tough. Hey, we go to the Holocaust Museum. So again, I've mentioned Adolf Hitler by name. Now I'm mentioning the Holocaust. I've tried some transitions there. Like every 420, we go to the Holocaust Museum, to fight against Adolf Hitler. That's a little awkward. I don't really get a good response out of that. At least it is a segue. This little Groupon joke is a nice little like halfway tag, but it's a little whatever. If not anti-Semitic, then at least not in good taste. So I don't love that little tag there, but it does kind of keep a little bit of the humor momentum going as I get into another tough setup. This is one of the longer setups I have in my act, and frankly, I hate doing this joke in a little 5-minute set like this because I do think it needs a little bit of audience trust that you can develop with doing quicker, punchier, safer jokes in the beginning. But I'm preparing for a longer set this weekend. I'm doing some 15-minute sets, and I really want to prepare this joke. It's one of the newer ones that I put into my act. So I've messed with this setup a few times. Again, it's tough to set up in a short set, and it does take some audience trust. But I'll go ahead and play out the joke, and maybe you guys can help me to get to the first punchlines because they are a little far away.
And when you go to the Holocaust Museum, they give you a card that has a guy's name and his face on it. At the end of the tour, you find out if he lived or if he died. My guy lived, my mom's lived, my sister's lived, my dad's still alive. I say, shoot, what are the chances of this? 1 in 6 million?
God, it's so hard to get a laugh out of that joke. I've thought about just cutting that joke and staying even further away from the first punchline. But it is what I have there. That is, I added that joke because it was taking too long to set this joke up. So the Groupon and the 6 million, they're definitely some insensitive jokes. I do comment on that later. But still, if I'm not getting a reaction out of them, they should probably just be cut. But then it just kind of shows even more how far away I am from this first punchline, which I do like. I like this joke, and I get a good reaction on the final tag. But I'm trying to make this joke work. This joke right now is in one sense it's on the cutting room floor because it hasn't gone as great as I want it to. But I do see a lot of potential in this joke. It's one of those jokes that took some skill as a comedian to be able to develop. Maybe not 100% there yet. I can even probably put it into that category of jokes that I'm not quite ready for yet. I haven't quite figured out how to finesse a joke like this and get it to work on stage. But I actually came up with the premise for this joke, which we'll see in a second here, a long time ago, maybe 6-8 months ago, and yeah, I just never got it to work. But I added these couple tags to kind of keep the audience engaged enough so that when I get to this first big punch, that I've gotten some really good reactions. So I want to use this in my act. I'm just trying to think, how do I continue to finesse it? How do I make it work? How do I keep it, still playful and fun while talking about a pretty dark topic?
So I go to the manager thinking, there's got to be something wrong here. And he goes, yeah, bro, that's a baseball card. The Holocaust Museum is next door. This is the Baseball Hall of Fame.
So that's the premise, is that I'm actually at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the little card they gave me is actually just an upper deck or a tops card. And I finessed that punchline a few different ways, where I either start by saying the Holocaust Museum is next door, this is the Baseball Hall of Fame, and then maybe point out that it's a baseball card. I found that it's just a little bit confusing if I don't say this is a baseball card up front. It probably does take a little bit away from the punch. Again, it's one of those jokes that's tough. It has such varied responses in crowds that I can't get a great reaction in terms of how I should be performing it. Hearing it out loud, watching it back with you guys, I actually think you got to take out the baseball card part. I think the manager just says, yeah, guys, the Holocaust Museum is next door. This is the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I've tagged that being like, oh, Max Scherzer. Yeah, this is a baseball card. Just to kind of get the first, get that big laugh from the baseball thing. People get it. They're like, it's a card with a guy's face and a name on it. And then I can do these kind of 3 follow-up tags, just kind of playing off the premise.
Well, why do you have all these striped uniforms on the wall? Those are the Yankees. Well, what are you doing with the bat from Inglourious Bastard? Oh, that's just a bat. That's just a...
So that's actually new timing to cut right in there and be like, oh, that's just a bat. So between the baseball card, the Yankee uniforms, and the bat from Inglorious Bastards. I've played with the order of those props and those kind of analogies. I've had one about like a pile of shoes, which were cleats. So, three is the right number. Whether I put the baseball in front of or behind the Baseball Hall of Fame punchline is a little bit close for me. I'm starting to lean on putting it afterwards. So just go 1, 2, 3, baseball card, Yankee uniforms, bat from Inglorious Bastards or whatever, and leave it at that. I'm still kind of waiting for the right audience for this one. I think it's kind of a heady joke. A lot of these bar shows, small audiences, haven't really had a chance to warm them up, get them on my side. To do like one of these long-winded kind of story form jokes, it's a risk. I'm more of a punchy guy, but this is the kind of joke that I really want to start incorporating into, especially my longer sets, and just be able to develop. I know this joke's not perfect, or it's actually pretty much in that C or maybe even D category for me right now, but I do believe in it. So if you guys could help out with it, any thoughts on this joke? It's probably the most important thing I could get out of, this first vlog, since I'm introducing this joke to you guys, and it's one that I'm like working hard on. And anyways, this next line is probably why I keep the joke and why I like it so much. This does get a pretty good reaction.
So I had a pretty confusing upbringing.
I actually forgot this. I forgot the tags. I just like rewinded and did it. God, that was me just not being focused up there.
Okay, look, that joke was pretty offensive. I lost you guys on the Holocaust Museum. One time after a show, a woman approached me and said I shouldn't tell that joke. It's very insensitive. I told her, ma'am, this is a comedy club. The Holocaust Museum is next door.
We'll block the signal.
That's right.
So I mean, that's why I like this joke. I mean, I know the whole like a lady came up to me after the show things are a little overdone, but it gets people by surprise. They never see it coming. I've gotten some great reactions off that one. I would like to tighten up the entire bit. I thought about just cutting all the examples with the striped uniforms and the baseball bat. Definitely thought about cutting those two little jokes up front with the 6 million odds and the Groupon stuff. But then it's not really the same joke, and it's not a great, quick whatever two punchline kind of one liner. It's definitely more of a story. So I guess this is a good example of like trying to punch up a story. Obviously, it's a absurd story and a comedic one that has just kind of a silly ending or whatever. It's all a joke. But even in that case, I'm still thinking, okay, how do I tell this story while getting laughs in the intermeaning sections so that I can have kind of this arcing, joke that gets one of the bigger reactions I have in my act. I'm not one to think, oh, this joke is like worth, 30, 45 seconds of punchline, no matter how big that laugh is. In that same time, I'd rather get, 5 regular laughs or 5 to 8 regular laughs. So it's just not really ever been my mentality. But again, in a longer form show, you kind of have some more wiggle room to spend a minute to get like one of the big laughs or an applause break. And then you kind of go back to the medium laughs that are at a pretty consistent tempo just to kind of, keep up with the kind of what I would say the rhythm of the show is. So this is a rhythm breaking joke. It's definitely unique for me. It's kind of the first of these kind of jokes that I've done. I've done other storytelling bits before where I've done the same thing and has some big punchline at the end, and I've tried to punch them up. I didn't believe in those jokes as much, and the big reaction at the end has never been as good as this one, where I say, ma'am, this is a comedy club. The Holocaust Museum is next door. So I'm going to stick with this one for the foreseeable future, at least next couple months, working it into some of my acts. I've been performing this joke a lot over the last couple weeks because I want to put it in my act, and I've been tightening it up a little bit. So here's its current form. Yeah, I was a little sloppy at the end there. I should have went straight into the woman approaching me after the show when I finished the joke. But yeah, this is the joke I'm looking for, I guess, some feedback on, if you guys have any thoughts.
So last night I wrote the perfect joke. This joke is so funny that it will cure racism. It'll cure racism. It'll bring all the religions in the world together. We'll all stand as one. And it will get rid of our political divides. That's how funny this joke is. So I ripped it up because then I'd have nothing else to joke about. But I put it back together because I needed a closer. God bless you guys. I'm Zach Newport.
Okay, so I mean, that's brand new. I've never actually performed that joke before, so I was pretty excited to put it in front of an audience. It's a little rough. I kind of knew that joke would be a little rough. It had a long setup. The punchline's meta, which any kind of self-referential joke is going to be kind of hard for the audience to wrap their heads around quickly. And it's a little, whatever you call it, self-aggrandizing thing. I wrote this like perfect joke or whatever. I've originally wrote it down and I stretched out this punchlines about like curing racism. I'm like, Martin Luther King, rose from his grave and saying, I don't need a dream anymore, and whatever, just try to like, people don't say hello anymore. They say, God bless Shabbat Shalom, and I had the Muslim greeting as well in there. I forget, whatever. So I've tried to like think about how I can like stretch that joke out a little bit. Right now, I just want to get a reaction on the main punchline to see if it's even worth investing in. But I do like the premise. I do like the premise, and there's one thing I would change about the actual punchline, which is I shouldn't say then I would have nothing left to joke about. Again, that's where this gets a little self-aggrandizing. I think it should be then we would have nothing else to joke about, or then there would be nothing left for us to laugh at. Something that brings the audience in a little bit more. I definitely think that is a better presentation of that joke, but it's a new one for me. I've written it a few different ways, so I'm going to keep sounding that joke out. I'm not sold on it even becoming, a staple yet, but it is written as a closer. I would like to have a kind of a punchy, fun closer like that. I do want some meta, some self-referential jokes. I think that's kind of I would count as advanced comedy or advanced joke. So I'm trying to write more of those, but they're tough. They're tougher to get the audience behind. They're not the simple kind of base characteristic jokes or autobiographical stuff that I've gotten the most success with. But I am branching out, so it's fun to try a joke like that, especially in a kind of a low stakes crowd like I had tonight. So that's it. That's the end of this bit. I'm gonna kind of flash back and do a little wrap up with you guys. But thank you guys for hanging out with this comedy breakdown. Cheers.